Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Reflect, Recalibrate. Woo woo. We are your lovely lady artivist hosts, the lovely Janet E. Dandridge and myself, Danny Snyder. And we are here today for part one of the Navigating Artivism Collection.
Yay.
Yeah. We probably should have done this 5 years ago. Because in this episode, we are asking, how do artivists thrive in an economic system built on racial capitalism? And how do artivists reconcile and navigate capitalist practices when trying to subvert them? And part of that is going to be looking at the definition of artivism. That's what I mean. Like, we probably should have done this 5 years ago. Which, by the way, happy 5 year anniversary, Janet E. Dandridge.
Yes. 5-year anniversary. Yes. And happy Black History Month. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
100th anniversary since
Oh,
the first official celebration, national, of Black history. Really, yeah, 100 years.
wow. I actually didn't know
Yeah.
that. Ooh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, let's start this off with this
Bit of news. Yeah, we're gonna start today,
it's a bit of
as we always
news.
do, with just a little bit of news. It's kind of a
Right,
big news,
right.
but we're gonna do a little
Just
bit
just a
of
little
this
bit, just a little
big.
bit. So, right,
Yeah.
right.
Take it away,
So,
Janet.
yes. So today's quick news bite is from, you know, the Pittsburgh Arts Council because they have such a lovely running list of updates of uh, things that impact the arts. Um, Gosh, I was reading this and I was just like, what? But right, makes sense. On Sunday, President Trump unexpectedly announced that he planned to close the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts for 2 years for renovations beginning in July. The statement followed a surge of recent cancellations from performing artists and groups who withdrew from scheduled performances since his removal of the previous leadership and the addition of his name to the building. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right.
And both of us are from DC. So this is like extra. Like it's hit I feel like for me it's hitting extra. I'm sure for you it is too. You know. I'm
It,
sure
it,
everyone around the world is listening to this, but like for people like us who like I remember in high school one of my first gigs, one of my first things was at the Kennedy Center. And that was such a big deal. And now I'm like
wow. You gonna close it for renovations? Like what? I
close.
mean, renovations have to happen, but I need to know more
Yeah.
of where my tax dollars are going,
Yeah.
or where donations are going,
Yeah.
and why right now, and what those renovations are, if they're actually necessary.
Yeah.
And I want to share another bit of news too, Danny. Something that happened last week, which was in the news cycle and is still relevant because they were federally charged. News anchor, or formerly
Mm.
CNN anchor, Don Lemon, um, was charged on, what does it say? Let me just read from it.
Hmm.
Federal
Hmm.
agents arrested former CNN anchor Don Lemon on charges that he violated federal law while reporting on an anti-ICE church protest earlier this month, prompting widespread concern from press advocates and lawmakers about escalating threats to press freedom under the Trump administration. PBS reports that the longtime journalist faces conspiracy and obstruction charges tied to a January 18th protest at a church where a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement official serves as pastor. An independent Minnesota journalist and two protest participants were also arrested. That independent Minnesota journalist's name is Georgia Fort. According to NPR, Amnesty International called the arrests of the two journalists a critical threat to our human rights. Now, they have been released on their own recognizance, but they are still facing these federal charges. So,
Yeah. Actually, does it say in the article when they go to court? When, like, how far away is that?
actually, I
Doesn't
do not
say.
know.
Don't know.
It
Yeah.
does not say it in this blurb.
I haven't really kept up with this, to be honest. But I hope it doesn't. Man, sometimes these things are
Right,
drawn out for so long.
right, right, right. So that's the news bit for today, y'all. If you have any thoughts, you can please share them in the comments.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of thoughts.
Lots of thoughts. Lots of thoughts. So
Yeah,
let's just get into our first question.
let's do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell us, Danny, how did we tell our
Yeah.
audience, what is the definition of artivism?
Yeah. So this is a definition that Janet and I spent a long time formulating, and we we presented at a conference, and that's why we were like, hey, we should probably have a more specific definition of what artivism is as we go into this conference presentation. But it's kind of a longer one. So y'all ready? Here we go. There are numerous opinions on works and actions considered to be origins of artivism. Some of those publications state that artivism, as a tactic, became widely known in the late 60s and 70s, some say the late 90s, but all of them recognize that arts and activism have intersected for eons. As for the term artivist, our understanding is that this label was first used by Chicano artists from East Los Angeles and San Diego and Zapatistas from Chiapas, Mexico. Artivistas in Espanol. And we believe that was during the 1970s. So our current comprehension is that one, an artivist is a professional artist who utilizes their practice to directly impact socio-political and cultural progress for the betterment of self and society. Two, artivism is a practice of individuals utilizing creativity to strengthen art activism campaigns. And then three, both being an artivist and creating artivism requires observation, critical thinking, empathy, imagination, and action. And, every episode that we've done has tapped into different understandings of this term artivist and artivism. But definitely want to give a shout out to our episode with Marta Gonzalez, which was our 8th episode. And that was actually like 2 years ago, which is crazy in my brain that that was so long ago now. Her music ensemble, Quetzal, is often credited for popularizing the term artivista, and she's also the author of Chicana Artivistas. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, as you said, I'm just like, yeah, man. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound good, right? But it's still kind of like, we kind of know, but we still don't kind of know. I would love to, like, man, if I could get a grant or something to just pay me to go figure out where this term really, 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 really started. I would love to go down to Chiapas. I would love to, you know, go to East LA. Yeah.
I actually want to share some additional information on the definition.
Hmm.
And I am prolonging my words because it is being pulled up right now on my computer.
Do, do, do.
I want to share what I share with students, participants in workshops where I am talking about artivism and we are creating artivism.
Hmm.
Because from that definition, that we pulled together from what we were reading, what I then did was synthesize it further to be able to share it
Hmm.
with the general public, right? Um, as well as artists, just to make sure that understanding is there. when it comes to speaking with folks who may not be artists, who may not be activists, but they are interested in the term. So what I share, long short, is, well, not long short, this is the actual long. Artivism is a portmanteau combining the words art and activism. Artivism is artwork that maintains aesthetic techniques while directly addressing specific social, political, cultural, and/or economic ideologies. Artivism effects and affects shifts in governing policies and social practices by promoting, uplifting, and implementing tactics and tools for justice and peace. And also, to add on, an artivist is a professional artist who utilizes their practice to directly impact socio, political, and cultural progress for the betterment of self and society.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we define it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to start here, since we're going to talk about how we, right, navigate this economic structure.
Yeah.
As artivists, as people who are seeking to use our practice to directly impact social, political, and cultural progress for the betterment of self and society.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I feel like every episode I'm always like, this is a subject that I wish I've knew more about or need to do more research about, but definitely when we start talking about the economy, I'm like, okay, this is this one is a lot for me. But it's something that I am actually, I enjoy reading about. In fact, right now I've been reading this book called More Than Just Food. Sorry, my
Oh,
camera's blurred, so you might not be able to see
put it
it
in your
very
face.
good.
Yeah, right there you go.
Is that better? Okay.
More Than Just Food.
Yeah,
Food
this
justice.
Food Justice and Community Change. And this is by Garrett Broad. And I'm only into the beginning of the book. It's because I have this habit of starting a book and then starting another book and then starting another book. And then Janet just sent me a book yesterday, which I was like, oh geez, we're never gonna finish anything here.
The
But
never-ending
yeah,
story.
I started it a while ago when I started my community garden, and then I kind of got distracted with some other books, and then I'm trying to get back into it. But in that book, especially at the beginning, I mean, there's a lot of context he's laying down about neoliberalism and the what's it called, the shadow state and the shadow of the shadow state. And it's like, yeah, first I was like, whoa, I don't know a lot about these things. At least I thought I did. I thought I understood neoliberalism. Then I was like, oh, okay, this is a lot more complicated, I guess, because again, it's the economy and I don't really have any background in economics. And
But
yeah.
you know what's been happening in your
Oh
pocketbook.
yeah.
You know
Oh
what's been
yeah.
happening with your friends and other folks who are
Mm-hmm.
artists. I mean, just in general,
Mm-hmm.
but specifically, obviously, since we're talking about artivism and artivists, is what you put in our notes for the show.
Right. Right.
What you said about the Chicano movement
Mm-hmm.
and what you're fighting for, what you're fighting against. So
Yeah.
restoration of land grants, farm workers' rights, enhanced education, voting rights, political ethnic stereotypes of Mexicans and mass media and the American consciousness, right? Fighting against that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about all of those things. All of those
Mm-hmm.
things are for the betterment of society. Capitalism is not structured for the betterment of society. It's structured to profit, period. It's not about humans and the well-being of humans and other beings and the earth. It's about how much can I make from the products that I produce.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a word that I really been resonating with recently and getting ready for this episode. It's just the word extraction, just thinking about capitalism as extraction and then thinking about how, and I mean, back in our last collection, we were talking about environmental work, and how the ethics, the questions that we face as artists, because we have to extract materials to make things, right? We have to extract from the land, and like, how do we how are we okay with that, I guess?
Right.
But, as I was thinking about that again in this concept, it's like I always was thinking of extraction of like the materials I'm taking from the planet. But then as I was thinking a little bit deeper about it of just, like in that one article that you had shared, which we'll go over a little bit, but they mention extracting how AI is extracting knowledge from people. And I was like, oh yeah, there's abstract things, can be extracted as well. Concepts can be extracted, theories, and you know what I mean? So I've been thinking a little bit more about, I take a thing and then I make a thing and then I put that thing out there and then I get a thing back for it. Just everything is transactional, right? And what are other models where it's not always about transaction, where it's more about relationships and where it's less extraction?
Less extraction.
Yeah, I don't know if we can go without extraction completely. Maybe I would like to figure that out, see, use my imagination and make my own utopia where there's no extraction at all. But I don't know if that's possible. Because again, there's
You know
like,
what I think it deals with, it makes me think of the idea of use and misuse.
yeah.
Because yes, we use each other. We use things, right? It's when we get into misusing
Hmm.
that connects to extraction for me. You are extracting from someone and not giving back to them. You are extracting from the earth and not giving back to the earth. It's like with abolition. You want to change the system, but you also need to know what the new way of doing things is going to be, right? Because you're taking away something, but what do you do to replace that or
Hmm.
make it better so that you don't repeat what was hurtful and painful before?
Yeah. 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 I
So real
mean,
quick,
go ahead.
let me just pose to our audience. Well, how do you define artivism? You
Yeah.
might not have ever heard the word until you started listening to this podcast, or you might have heard the word, but how do you define artivism? So I'll put that in the chat. My apologies for cutting you off
No,
there.
no, you didn't cut me off. I was just wondering, this is probably a good segue into also just explaining what we mean by when we're talking about the relationship, or I mean it's not even a relationship, it's connected, but capitalism and racism.
Right.
And I'm looking through my notes here. Oh my gosh, we have so many notes for today. It's mostly me. I apologize that I totally I totally, here we go, here we go. So one of our questions that we had for today was, how do artivists thrive in an economic system built on racial capitalism? And you know, I've kind of I I agree with the definition we have here for racial capitalism, but I'm like, shouldn't we just call it racist capitalism? I don't know. So,
Well, I mean, it's sort of one and the same, right? It's racist, it's racial, it's based on the construct of race.
right, right.
So calling it racial capitalism directly points to what capitalism is. We talk
Hmm.
about extraction. One of our guests said extraction and exploitation.
Yeah.
It goes hand in hand. So racial capitalism is exploitation. Just think about us as artists. We are exploited.
Hmm.
Just as I was sharing in our pre-show, this poem from Kolika Putuma, I think it's called Juke, not think it's called, but this is what I found, Jukebox on Demand, I think speaks to extraction and exploitation, and which is racial capitalism.
Hmm.
This tidbit from it, from this work, it says, at home, they believe that you are a musician heard by thousands. Your arthritis strumming a guitar on a train in Berlin can verify. Years after your death, your gallerist still makes euros from your art, while your children piece together your belongings in the shack you left behind. And that's the story of so many artists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Works being sold for millions of dollars
Yeah.
while we read about them living on the streets,
Yeah.
having um, physical ailments, mental challenges, but not having been helped at that time. But here
Hmm.
we are benefiting from their work. So they were
Hmm.
exploited, they were taken from, and nothing was given back to them.
Yeah.
How is this model of capitalism something that we can work within and try to subvert and change?
Hmm. Hmm.
The other question, right? Because we're using these apps to be able to spread knowledge, right? And we're doing the work of conversation to engage and inspire. Yet we are using platforms that are extractive.
Hmm. Hmm.
People don't get paid for posting unless you get to a certain period and point, but you're not even getting paid by the platform. You're getting paid by sponsors who want people to know about their product. But when you are engaging people and they are on these platforms because they want to read about whatever's going on, that platform isn't given back to you. It's not a co-op. There's no
Right.
mutual aid.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So you are managing the trauma of working in capitalism while doing your work as an artist that you know you need to do because this is what your spirit calls you to do. This is how you can create justice. This is how you can create love. This is how you can change the systems. Yet and still, you have to use the system. But do you? And if you don't,
Right.
then how are you going to survive while the system is still what it is?
Yeah. 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 The arthritis is real. The death is real. Honestly, you know what I think a lot about? Uh, I I actually don't think I don't know for sure. I really don't, because I'm not an expert in the life of Frida Kahlo, but I don't think she was struggling as much financially. Um, but she uh she definitely had communist philosophies. And then here we are printing socks with her face on it. And I'm like, and it feels so weird to me. And people know that I like Frida. So they give me this kind of stuff all the time. Like, here's a pair of socks with Frida's face on it, or here's a bag with Frida's face on it. I was like, this is not what Frida would have wanted. I think people have kind of lost the point. So yeah, it's
Right. Right. Like if they were alive, would they be okay with this
right.
happening? You
Exactly.
know, would,
Exactly.
would they
And
allow for this to happen?
and she had fame while she was alive, but after she passed, her fame continues to grow. And this is definitely, she would have not been okay with her face being printed on socks and bags the way it is, and yeah. So that one's a weird one for me. But yeah, I think it can I read that Cedric Robinson definition
Please.
of, yeah, okay. So we have this one article and we'll put this in our show notes below. That's from Nonprofit Quarterly about what it means to dismantle racial capitalism. And from that article, they reference Cedric Robinson, who's a professor of political science and Black studies. And basically, he argued that the system of capitalism emerged from and relied on the existence of an already racialized society. And thus, as I mentioned before, there can be no separation between the two. So, to be clear, racial capitalism is not a type of capitalism that divides workers along the lines of race. Rather, all existing capitalism is racial capitalism. And by using the term, today's scholars and activists reinforce the centrality of race in the material mechanisms of our global economy. And just another quote from that article, just to help provide a little bit more context. Within the US, racial capitalism affects everyone, but is especially deeply felt in Black, Indigenous, and immigrant communities. At the international level, people who are overwhelmingly of color in the global South are targeted with unsafe working conditions, low wages, toxic and polluting industries, displacement, and other forms of violence in the name of profit. So again, everything's about profit. And one of the things we'll do today is look at what are some other systems maybe that are not based entirely on profit. Any reactions to those quotes? I know you read the article.
Right. Yeah. I have lots of reactions. However, I want to point to some things that are coming up in our chat.
Nice.
After posting or asking, how do you define artivism? So one person says, being an activist through an artistic eye. And then another person, I think in that was that's what people shared for the definition of artivism. And then when we got into racial capitalism and the idea of having something to replace, another posted, the situant power, the power of taking things apart, can be exercised without having a replacement in hand. Much of this system is trash serving trash.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next person follows up with powerful, right? Right.
Yeah.
And then lastly, another audience member shares, slavery was the apex of capitalism.
Yep.
Right. And I want to go back real quick before we move away from this little bit about having something in hand. You know, it's difficult for me to feel like it's okay to not have something in hand. Because I think about when you do dismantle, or when you do take things apart, and I think, and I agree with, being exercised without having, being exercised, right, without someone having a plan in hand, right? But I think overall, people who are doing the work of organized dismantling and mobilizing people, I believe, we need to have something in hand, or we need to have an idea of what that is so that practice can begin. Because then people have something that they can look forward to.
Yeah.
You're already so accustomed and acclimated to working in a particular way that if that way in which you're working totally is dismantled, and pulled apart, and you're there and you're like, okay, so what do I do? Yeah, you're going to live, right? The first thing is, hey, y'all, live. You're alive. Go outside. And as one of our guests, some in a previous episode said, frolicking in the fields or something along those lines, do that, right? But then what do you tell them when they say, well, I mean, yeah, that's nice and all. I'm happy to be alive and I want to frolic in the fields, but okay, so I don't know how to grow food. So I need someone to teach me how to grow food. So having that in place, that person who can help you, hey, okay, this is how you grow food for yourself, for your family, for your friends. This is what I'm thinking about when I think about having something in hand ready to go. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full system, right? But something.
Yeah.
However, like I said, I can understand when that individual who may not be organized, or who may not be from an organizing space and but they are being mobilized, that they may not have, an idea, right? But they're just like, hey, yeah, I'm pulling this apart because I know it's wrong. But groups of people who are doing that work of organizing and mobilizing, I think need to have those answers, right? And that's what we can discuss.
Yeah. I think like not enough people are going to quote, trust the process.
Trust the process.
You have to have a plan, and then people will trust the process. I'm
Ay,
looking
ay,
at
ay.
I'm looking at this other book that you inspired me to get that I'm almost done reading. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in another episode, or maybe even in a book club one day. But
Ooh.
Imagination and Manifesto by Ruha Benjamin. And I was trying to see if there's a good quote to kind of like, bounce off of what you just said. But really the whole book is it's just full of good quotes. Like this one,
Right.
yeah, it's so good. Like I'm looking through it, I'm like, I've literally highlighted almost the entire book. I was like, I really got to get out of this habit. It's bad. But I just love this, like, this is just in the preface, a collective imagination when we imagine different worlds together, writing shared stories and plotting futures in which we can all flourish, like a collective imagination, not one person making a plan, a collective of people making a plan, which kind of goes into what we'll talk about in a little bit about co-ops and some of these other models that have this co-op idea of it's all equal. And that goes back to the Zapatistas as well. I mean, it goes back, it's still present, but Zapatistas, there's not supposed to be one leader. And in fact, a lot of times in the media and in like Wikipedia pages and stuff, they want to say there's a leader of the Zapatista movement, but there's not. It's all equal. And even when people are trying to classify their political ideologies, they're like, no, we are not this, we are not that, we're not. It's like, even like the term anti-neoliberal, they don't seem to even like that from what I've observed. They don't like any of those kind of classifications, and they don't like anyone suggesting that there's a leadership.
Right. You're on the same page. And what you're referring to in reference to the quote from Ruha Benjamin's book, Imagination Manifesto, that is the social imaginary, right? The
Yeah.
new social imaginary, when we collectively imagine a new way of existing and we all do it together. We all are actually trusting the process and we allow the process to happen. So, how do you get the majority of people to say, all right, I trust the process, right? I don't need a hierarchy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
cool. Like, I know you can do this and I know you can do that. And I know, yeah, there's people who are, leaders. Like, there's people who can get folks going, right? And,
Yeah.
and get people to move forward. But you don't have to say, well, I'm the top dog.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that way.
Yeah.
There's something else in the chat. I just wanted to let me get back over there so something come in.
Thank you, technical director, for navigating artivism and all the technicalities of our Artivist
Right,
podcast.
right. So, it's the least I can do
Thanks.
with the money that was spent for school. So, democratic socialism or just socialism is an alternative. How do we feel about that? To capitalism, an alternative to capitalism, democratic socialism,
Do we have
or
a good
just
definition of democratic socialism? Because I feel like there's probably many definitions of what that is.
I do not have a definition on hand, but I can type it into search engines and see what comes up.
Because I feel like that would be have
So
that would
that
have
we don't
so
just say
many.
something
Yeah, but I feel
that
like that would
is
have so many
long-winded.
branches, like even if we get a summary, I feel like there's a lot of
Well,
different.
the first thing that comes up, or the one that I'm going to click on, is what
Okay.
is democratic socialism from Democratic Socialists of America?
Oh, okay.
Uh, so democratic socialism, a system where ordinary people have a real voice in our workplaces, neighborhoods, and society. We believe that there are many avenues that feed into the democratic road to socialism. Our vision pushes further than historic social democracy and leaves behind authoritarian visions of socialism in the dustbin of history. So
Okay.
it goes on to say, we want a democracy that creates space for us all to flourish, not just survive, and answers the fundamental questions of our lives with the input of all. We want to collectively own the key economic drivers that dominate our lives, such as energy production and transportation. We want the multiracial working class united in solidarity instead of divided by fear. We want to win radical reforms like single-payer Medicare for all, defunding the police, refunding communities, the Green New Deal, and more as a transition to a freer, more just life. We want a democracy powered by everyday people. The capitalist class tells us we are powerless, but together we can take back control. And that is from the Democratic Socialists of America.
Okay.
So with that though, I'm still like, we're still using the playbook of democracy, right? And ideally, when I think of democracy, I think of, oh, we all have a say. Yes, that's cool. But also consider the language that's used, and it already has these definitions that are baked in. And so we would inherently do those things still by using that same language. So even with the language that we use and how we organize to work together is important, right? So yeah, let's listen to each other. Let's all have a say in what we do.
Yeah.
Right. And the whole like reform, no, I'm more about the abolish things.
Yeah.
Start over.
Yes, 100%.
Like,
That's how I am. Yes.
like
Yeah.
it's because clearly it's not cool. It's not working. It's not just. It's inhumane. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I I like this idea on a small scale, like my community, like I'm thinking my neighborhood even, maybe not even city, just like in my little, I'm gonna make it my tribe, um, where we all decide together how we contribute, how we share, how we take care of each other. I like that idea. Uh, but I know that if you were just to go down the road, just even 20 miles, they were to make their own little system of, I don't even call it government, just their system, their own system and practices and rituals, that would probably look very different than ours right here. You know what I mean? And then you would go to the community tribe that you wanted to go to, where you felt more aligned generally with the people there. But I I'm drawn to this idea, and that sort of taps into what I was reading about solidarity economy movement, particularly the international solidarity economy movement, which is a global post-capitalist framework aimed at building a just, sustainable economy that prioritizes people and the planet over profit. And it has, if you go to like the International Solidarity Economy Movement website, which was very interesting. But it is talking about smaller communities taking power and ownership and having autonomy. And if you want, I can go deeper into some of the other values, but I want to pause there for a second. Okay.
Yeah. Keep it moving.
So some of their values, as I mentioned, solidarity, equity, social and economic democracy, environmental sustainability, and their alternative to capitalism, advocating for practices and economic activities like worker-owned cooperatives, co-ops, community land trusts, fair trade, mutual aid, as you mentioned, and maybe even having your own currency if you wanted. Like my little neighborhood having our own form of currency if we wanted that. I would love to live in a place where there was no currency personally, but and then
culture is currency, like Teaching Artists Institute says.
Okay, that's true. That's true. I'm thinking like dollar bills, like like this is how I contribute, but yes, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But that's what I meant. Like I would just, sometimes I wonder if I was born in the wrong time period, but I really liked having been born after feminism was a thing. Continue on. The solidarity economy movement promotes shifting power and resources to communities, so dismantling this top-down structure to foster authentic community-led development. And this means implementing participatory, like grant making, building local capacity, strengthening community-led organizations, ensuring decision power resides with the residents. And again, that means everyone's got to be in. Everyone's got to, no one cannot be in. Everyone's got to be all in with it. It requires long-term commitment And this is something I was reading a lot about, but particularly long-term commitment to trust-based philanthropy, which to me, me being someone who I'm so over the nonprofit industrial complex. I am so over writing grants. I'm so over it. This idea of a trust-based philanthropy where
Hmm.
you're given money for many years without restriction, without a lot of monitoring and a lot of control, where it's, hey, here's some money and we trust you, go make an impact. And you don't need to tell us how much of an at-risk business this is, or like you don't need to be showing us kind of data of impact because you can just focus on making the change, you know? So these are some of the aspects and qualities, but
Hmm.
this is kind of new to me. This is something just starting to learn about. And
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
a lot of aspects of it. What are your thoughts?
That term trust-based philanthropy
Weird,
is
right?
rubbing me a little weirdly.
Yeah.
Because how did the philanthropists get their money in the first place?
Yeah, great
You know what I
question.
mean? Like, so we're still
So,
working in the system of there being a hierarchy and there being extreme wealth and the disparity between the wealthy and the less financially stable or the
right,
poor is
right,
still the same, it sounds like.
right.
I I'm not sure about that. And it's like you said about grants. So as artists, part of the structure of working as an artist is applying for grants. And that is so problematic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can just work as an artist and make a living.
Mm-hmm.
Like you actually have to apply for grants. And that ties into how there are no, there is not, I should say, there is not a robust policy framework for artists in the United States of America. I can speak to directly, right? So if there's no framework, then that's something, right, to establish, as artists, or figure out. And people have been working on those things with unions, and understanding how to help each other, mutual aid, bartering. However, when it comes to policy and frameworks within this capitalist structure, there is nothing for us that is robust, that is definitive, that can help us thrive financially within this system. And one of the problems is the grant process. Even with the
Mm-hmm.
National Endowment of the Arts, how they shifted from providing individual artist grants to having to be part of a nonprofit, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't get individual artist grants from any NEA anymore. And that happened many, 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 many years ago.
Mm.
So as artists, what are we going to do? What are we going to do that does not utilize the same handbook that has put us in this predicament
Yeah.
that we're in right now?
Yeah. Well,
One of,
oh, sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead, go ahead,
I was just
please.
gonna say, like, with the navigating part, the idea of like, at least for now, if my choices are no grants, grants, or maybe trust-based philanthropy, I'm like, that is that is one direction we can go in. That's a step closer to utopia. But you know,
Ha, utopia. Mm.
yeah. But I think like, yeah, I there's elements that I like of this. Do I think it's perfect? No. But as far as, at least since our theme today is navigating,
Right,
what are some
right,
different
right,
ways we can navigate the waters here? I will
right,
say real quick,
right.
Amy Funderburk sent me a message. She was on one of our podcast episodes, and she sent this from Hyperallergic. It was a quote from Damian Davis. It says, and it's in reference to grants. Application fees are one of the least examined but most pervasive forms of class stratification in the arts. And
Right.
that's just one part of grants that I have issues with.
Right.
So just wanted
Right.
to share that.
Right.
Sorry. Go ahead, Janet.
No, please. I'm glad that you shared that. And then Amy actually is in the YouTube chat as well. And
Or she is? Yay!
she just shared the Republic of Ireland recently passed the Basic Income for the Arts, an incentive that
Mm-hmm.
provides artists with a weekly set guaranteed payment. This was first studied with a small test group. Yeah, I wonder what that all entails, what that the cost of living, how does that work with healthcare, et cetera. So that's something, that we can look
Mm-hmm.
further into, everyone we can look further into as a follow-up, right, to listening to our episode. What does that look like? What does that entail? Um, when thinking about, again, what are these new ways of existing together? Something else that came up in what we were researching was the idea of focusing the aim not just on structural racism and not just on capitalism, but rather on how those two forces are interconnected and intertwined, and then how to take on tangible fights that empower people to make a real impact on their lives and that have a real chance of winning. And
Yeah.
that to me is just uh the crux,
Yeah.
like the winning, like you were saying, getting people on board, right? Getting people
Yeah.
to trust the process. Like what's going to win? Because you're fighting this together. We're doing it together. We're fighting this together.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, we've been fighting for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Things have changed and we can say things have improved, but some things have just shifted into other spaces. Or like when one of our audience members brought up slavery as what do they say? Slavery as the apex of capitalism. Um, then understanding like how it's shifted into the prison industrial complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it sometimes it feels as though how exactly is this going to change completely? And what you said about navigating, and some of the things that you like from that work of, what was it called?
The
Called
International Solidarity Economy
economy,
Movement.
right? And then looking at other practices and figuring out, okay, um what works from here, and pulling that all together,
Mm-hmm.
taking all those things and then looking at that and saying, okay, so how can we pull out all of those items that hold true to the systems that have not helped us, and then utilize what's left to build something or things that are worthwhile. I'm man, man, oh man.
We should start like
My
taking tabs for how often do we sigh in our episodes.
I'm sorry. I'm
Both of us are
trying.
always like, ah.
Right, like
The
listening
burnout's
back
real
to.
though. The burnout's real because it's like, okay, what can actually win? What's actually quote realistic? And that's something again that I think about a lot when I'm looking at this imagination book of like, the amount of things we said 100, 200, however many years, even 10 years ago, like, oh, that's unrealistic. And people are finally like, no, actually, that's totally doable. We just need people on board. Um, yeah, I'm thinking as far as like another navigation, another way to navigate capitalism right now is going back to this idea of co-ops of I'm very inspired by cooperatives of artists. And what's really exciting is when I first was looking into this, not every state could you do a cooperative. There were some states where you could register as like an LLC, you could do a nonprofit, but you couldn't get a cooperative. But now I've discovered in all 50 states, you can establish a cooperative, which is pretty cool. Um,
Oh,
Yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't know that until researching for this. So, uh, there's, for example, here I live in Lynchburg, Forest, right outside Lynchburg, and about an hour and a half away is Charlottesville, and there's a really cool gallery in Charlottesville that's a cooperative. And the first time I was exposed to this idea was actually in Europe. I felt like I saw them everywhere, and I was like, I don't think I ever saw this in the U.S. But since moving back to the U.S., I've been seeing more and more of it, and we actually have one right here in Charlottesville. This gallery. So it's a collective of artists who all own the space together and promote each other's work and decide together as a group, as a collective, what their expectations are, how they share hours, working the front desk, all that stuff. And actually have here, let me pull it up here. Da, 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 da. But I do have one of Ming Qi Chen's pieces. I thought it'd be kind of fun since we're getting ready for Chinese New Year's. But I got this at the cooperative. She's this amazing artist that cuts paper, like tiny, tiny, tiny little cuts. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me because I blocked my microphone, but she makes these tiny little cuts in paper to make these amazing images. And so my mom's the dragon, I'm the tiger, year of the tiger, year of the dragon. So I had to get those too.
Oh, oh
But yeah,
wow, that's
she's one of the
nice.
artists at that cooperative. And it's depending on where you live and depending on like where you studied, where you went to school. I think
Hmm.
about this a lot in the film industry too. Like a lot of people, their first films are with the people that they went to film school with. It's like in some situations and contexts, it might be easier to form a collective, to form some sort of cooperative. But for other people, it might be harder to find their people. So that's one thing I was thinking about too, is finding examples of
Hmm.
arts cooperatives that are online. And I did actually find one that was kind of cool, but I think that might be the next step is like can artivists form cooperatives online as another path, another way to navigate capitalism. I'm not saying that's perfect either.
Hmm. Right. But you're right. And it's a proven way, method, system that works for people. And it's just a matter of choosing the lifestyle that you want, right? And being okay with that lifestyle. You know, I'm saying that in reference to what you're saying about the co-ops and in reference to Amy putting in the chat how much the weekly payment for the artists are for this
Mm.
new basic income for the arts. And so in excuse me, in USD, in US dollars, it would be $18,432 annually, right? Like that's
Oh, it's hard to eat cheese off of that. But
it's
wait,
a step, it's a
that's on
step.
top of free rent? That's on top of free rent?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know.
Does health insurance come with that?
Yeah, like it's some I want to look further into it, but just from what Amy shared with us, thinking about that annual salary and knowing
Mm,
that it just doesn't it just doesn't work. I don't know where that would work. I haven't ever
hmm.
lived in places where that amount of money works. I've had to work with that amount of money and I know it doesn't work. I know
Yeah.
that it creates, problems and then trying to get health care, um, trying to have transportation and get food and, you
Yeah.
know, it's it makes you think about it makes me think about Vermont, where I am, and the whole DIY culture. If we learn how to do it ourselves, then we don't have to go out to buy it, right? If we learn how to make our own clothes, right? So if we learn how
Hmm.
to grow our own food, right? Then we can
Hmm.
move that idea of co-ops or mutual aid further, right? It's like, wow, you're not using the technology. So you are then moving into what was before, which is doing all these things by hand in person do you want to do that? And that speaks to the idea of the lifestyle and what is it that you want and getting people on board. How can you maintain where we are now currently within modern society, all the luxuries that we enjoy, what we like? What do we have to let go of? And what are we going to give ourselves as a gift? You know, because the luxuries are great, right? But they're associated with that racial capitalism. They're associated with artists being exploited. And so then what do you create as well? What do you create as the respite or as the luxuries that work within the new way of working together that, you know, that people enjoy? And luckily, as artists, you know, you can sing, right? You can play music, you can paint, you can, you know, photograph, you can, you know, create stories just using your bodies, you know, movement, somatic practices, things of that nature. But wow, people are gonna be like, so I don't get no Netflix.
Yeah. You get a drum circle. Way cooler.
Right. Like, but yeah, but I also think there would be people who'd be like, you know what? Okay, cool. But again, in shifting a whole
Yeah.
entire history of racial
Yeah.
capitalism,
Yeah.
while knowing that its impact on you and your family and your friends and the world has been severe, has been fatal.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, man, but do I have to do that to change it? But like one of our guests said earlier, you know, trash on trash on trash.
Yeah.
Do you want to be trash on trash? Do you want to be
Yeah.
on the trash on trash on trash?
Yeah.
Or do you want to take all the trash out, start with a clean slate? I mean, right?
It's funny. It's funny whenever I meet an American who says that they're Buddhist. I'm like, how can you be an American and be Buddhist? It always kind of throws me off. Like, how can you be into capitalism but also be a Buddhist? So it's something I'm trying to.
Oh, wait a minute. That's a thing. American Buddhist? That's like
No,
a.
no, just people here in the United States. When I meet
Oh,
people
okay.
here in the United
It's like
States who
what?
say they practice Buddhism, and I'm like, and I don't know, like my understanding of Buddhism is that you're there's some detachment from stuff, detachment from all sorts of things, not just material things. And I don't know. That's where it starts with me of like we're so attached to stuff and to things and it's I don't know. I'm like I'm curious to learn more about how you can live in capitalism and also be a practicing Buddhist. But that, I don't know. Like when I was in Thailand and I was in Vietnam, I was very inspired by some Buddhist people that I met. And there were some that I asked, like, because in Thailand too, there's a lot of obsession with brand names, like with brand clothing. I was really surprised about that. And talking to some of my friends of like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you live in a culture where there's a lot of focus on like fashion and brands and stuff, and you're still practicing Buddhist and you're not attached to things, I don't know. But I feel like that again, to me, the big takeaways from today for me, I think, are this idea of extraction. How can I extract less and not just, from the earth, like from people too, from thought, from wisdom, how I contribute and, like you said, use well instead of misuse. But also, I want to have this kind of community where there's not so much attachment to, like you said, like Netflix and stuff. We just, we grow our own food and we, at the end of the day, sit in a drum circle.
I mean, there's communities like that exist, but
I
on a
know.
larger scale,
And I
like.
need I need to find them, right? And
I mean, I mean, look,
that was a bit
I
of a
enjoy.
tangent, but I hope you
Mm-mm,
followed it. Sorry, go ahead.
I did, and I enjoy movies. Like we have movie night. I
Yeah.
really enjoy. I mean, I did work in film and TV for many years. I enjoy it. But what always was in the back of my mind, and I think why I did not want to continue within that realm in the way that possibly would have put me into a different financial bracket as an actress or as a performer, was understanding how understanding how trifling people are within that industry, and
Mm-hmm.
how you are exploited, and how, you know, fees for joining unions
Mm-hmm.
is difficult for some people, especially when you're in LA and you're trying to make it, and you're trying to pay your rent and get food, but you got to pay fees, you know, to be a part of a union. You can't join the union, but then you got to join a union to be able to get into or get work that is
Mm-hmm.
union work. And if you're non-union, then you get paid nothing. I was just like, this is not right. On top of the fact that, oh, you need to wear straight hair wigs to your auditions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, on top of the fact that people were being sexually assaulted and abused
Mm-hmm.
always, all of these things, right? But I enjoy the art of filmmaking,
Yeah.
right? I enjoy the the product, the work that comes out of it.
Yeah.
And it's not just Hollywood. You know, people make films, independent films or films, period. And I enjoyed that. So knowing that I have to pay bills,
Mm-hmm.
how do I subvert this thing? Right. Again, what we said, how do I do this while being within this trauma? How do
Mm-hmm.
I shift it while having to navigate the trauma?
And it's probably a
So,
question
yeah.
we'll be asking in 20 years. we still, we're gonna,
Hopefully not.
well,
Like,
I
hopefully not, Danny. Hopefully not. Like, for
don't
real, man. I don't want my
know.
child
Yeah.
and all the other children and the students to have to deal with this same crap. It's and that's the that's the most, that's just like so horrible that we know from history that people have been dealing with this the same thing in
Yeah.
different ways, in different stages, with different faces, you know.
I just feel
So
like
yeah.
I'm turning 40 this year, and I feel like I've spent a long
Oh,
time, and it's not a long time, but I feel like it feels long of like trying all sorts of different things and still not knowing. Still, I think it's gonna be another 20 years of trying more stuff, trying different things, trying different routes and pathways. Like the fact, like, I never would have expected myself here 20 years ago. Absolutely not. So who knows? Who knows from here?
yeah, you know, it's
But
new things are cool things. You know what I'm saying? Like trying new things and exploring new things.
yeah,
I love that. But living within systems that practice injustice, genocide, hate,
yeah.
I'm that no, just no. So you had a takeaway, and I and my takeaway for this is on a daily basis, always practice using, you know, what you need and working with other people and not misusing each other, and continuing to practice love and justice because I know that it spreads because
Hmm.
I'm doing it and I'm showing it.
Hmm.
And also do my work as an artist because it is of value that is beyond anything that is of paper money,
Hmm.
right? So the call to action would be continuing to do the work of building and sustaining new social imaginaries,
Yeah.
and to not engage in the extractive racial capitalism as best as you possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, So with that, it is 2:05.
I know. And actually, I forgot to tell you, but I do have a class at 2:30, so I have to be good
Oh,
today.
Lord. All right.
I do
So,
have to be good today. We're gonna keep it to an hour, which I know is hard when we're talking about, oh my gosh, like there's so many things in
yeah.
our notes that we didn't even touch in,
Right. It's
but
and
this is
yeah.
a good collection. We're gonna have more opportunities to get deeper into this stuff over the next two episodes.
Right. Right. So, real quick, I just want to make sure though. I know I shared my very last piece. Did you have
Mhm.
anything else that you wanted to share before we sign out?
No, I think that's a good place to stop. I liked
All
what you
right.
said about the call to action. And again, I think like for me, as far as imagining, so like social imagining, I want to kind of like when I quoted the book, Imagination and Manifesto, is finding people to do that with and not just by myself. Um, and I think you can probably relate to this because we're kind of in weird remote areas, and there's a lot of people that don't necessarily think like us or maybe look like us. So uh, that was mostly geared at you. So yeah, I think like trying to find my tribe and trying to find I am gonna for those local listeners here, I am doing Artivist meetups now once a month here in Lynchburg. So, and I'm gonna try to do it in Bedford also. So it'll be once a month at Scrappy Elephant in Lynchburg, and hopefully I'll find a place to do it in Bedford, and it's free. So that's something I'm trying to do to find my
Awesome.
tribe. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for doing this with me.
So, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, in part 2 of the Navigating Artivism Collection, we will be chatting with Y, an interdisciplinary artivist who uses creative expression and cipher pedagogy to activate his highest potential, serving communities through art, education, and culture. We have so much to discuss with him. so much,
Yeah.
so much to discuss with him. I am looking forward to this conversation, just as I look forward to all the conversations because everybody is so awesome. So mark your calendars right now. Put it in your calendar, in your phone, on your physical calendar, wherever, put a post-it note on your computer, whatever you need to do for February 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Is it
Mhm.
Eastern Standard Time right now or Eastern Time?
Isn't it the same thing?
No,
Shouldn't we know
it's
that
not.
by now?
It's not. Something else that needs to probably shift, like this whole
Oh.
jumping back and falling forward. Anyway, so February 21st, 1 p.m. ET. And we'd like to remind our listeners that this podcast is funded by the two of us, Danny and Janet, and your donations. So please help us keep our podcast going by making a donation through our PayPal link in the show notes, in the blurb. All right. So
Yeah.
thank you all for being here. Thank you for giving us your time. And remember to subscribe, like, and share. All right, y'all. Peace.